Today, our newsmaker is Senator Tommy Tuberville. He may be a new face in Washington, but he's well known throughout this world, particularly for his coaching skills. That being from the University of Mississippi, Texas Tech, University of Cincinnati, and perhaps most prominently from Auburn University. He happens to be one of the top 50 most successful coaches of all time, and he's turning into one of the best senators this country has ever had. I know Alabama is proud to have him. I'm also proud to just make mention of the fact that he was born and spent some of his early days in my home state of Arkansas. And we're proud of him in Arkansas, as they certainly are in Alabama. Coach, welcome to the show, and so good to have you. Thank you for what you're doing at the U.S. Senate. I like to say you're there doing the Lord's business in the devil's town.
Well, thank you, Governor. It's good to see you. I've seen you on the road several times as you've traveled, and I've been traveling, but it is a different place. It's different than being on the sideline for an SEC team walking in front of 100,000 people. Up here, I call it the clown show. We never get anything right, but it looks like sometimes we're trying to do it. But I want to say thanks for what you do and your Christian values and what you've done, because you're a huge voice for conservative values, and Lord help us all. We need as much as we possibly can get.
Well, you're very kind. Coach, you've thrown a few yellow flags in your career as a senator, one recently. After the 2 assassination attempts on the former president, you started pushing officials strongly to use whatever force was necessary to keep him safe. And if that meant getting the Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, the Department of Homeland Security involved, whatever it took. And I just want to thank you for standing up and pushing hard for what should be a simple issue that I think you've persuaded your fellow senators to do, given the most recent vote where protection is going to be afforded more prominently to President Trump.
Well, thank goodness, Mike. You know, simple is not a word used up here very often. And President Trump is a friend of mine as he is yours. And he's an American. And he deserves to be protected. A former president, 2 assassination attempts in a matter of a couple of months. And there's no sense of urgency up here. So I just stepped up and said, hey, enough is enough. Whatever it takes. And I know that, the Secret Service tries hard, and sometimes, they're overwhelmed, with work, because we have, I think, 33 people in the United States that are covered by the Secret Service. Plus they have all their Treasury jobs that they have to work at. But my gosh, if we can't protect a former president and a guy that's running and is the nominee for the Republican Party, I mean, we don't have a country. So thank goodness this week we passed something, and it wasn't money. It was just saying, hey, any candidate running for president deserves and should get the same amount as a sitting president. So we're making strides. Now, again, he's going to have more death threats thrown at him, Governor, in the next 41, 42 days. It is unbelievable, but we have got to protect Donald Trump.
The economy is uncertain. You never know whether your money's worth as much today as it was yesterday. It's one of the reasons I buy gold from American Hartford Gold. American Hartford Gold has earned a 5-star rating and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. Be sure to tell them Mike Huckabee sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first qualifying order. Call 844-417-1010 or text Mike to 998899. You'll be glad you did business with American Hartford Gold. Just this past week, the Iranian president came to the United States. He made an inflammatory speech against Israel, basically against the United States. This is the same nation that has vowed publicly that they were going to assassinate President Trump. Why on earth did we allow the Iranian president to come into this country and then afford him with a level of protection that, quite frankly, exceeded that we were giving Donald Trump until resolutions like the one that you put forth have actually taken place?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Iran has had him and President Trump in their crosshairs ever since he was in office, because he did so much damage to Iran, trying to knock back the terrorist state. He took away all their oil and gas reserves in terms of being able to make money. But the Biden regime and Harris regime comes in, they just change it all. They've made them rich again. They've made them prosperous again. And so that's what's going on in Israel. If Biden and Harris had not come in and changed things around with allowing them to make $60, $70, $80 a barrel off their oil, then they would be poor as a church mouse. But you let the Democrats do anything, and I promise you, it's not going to be for the future of anybody here or the future of this country. It's all about giving everybody else something and taking away from the Americans.
Do you trust the poll numbers that show this race to be razor thin close and that Kamala Harris in some polls actually leading? I'm sure that's not the case in your home state of Alabama, but I'm thinking that it's hard for me to believe that there's that many Americans who think 4 more years of what we're getting right now would be somehow desirable. And I'll put it in context that you'll understand as a coach. When I was in junior high and the coach used to give us licks back when they could do that, we would always have to say, "Thank you, coach. May I have another?" And I'm almost thinking that the American public, if they vote for Kamala Harris, might as well be saying, "Thank you, coach. Can I have another 4 years of this?" Do you trust these polls?
No, I really don't. But you really don't know where they stand. What concerns me is this is the second presidential candidate that's basically been an artificial intelligence candidate, AI, being that they put Joe Biden in the basement and they've had Kamala Harris somewhere and not allowed her to talk and do any interviews. Basically, the Democrats tell them just hide, let the mainstream media, about 90% of them, go out and sell what they need to sell to get you elected. There's no truth to anything what Kamala Harris says. Everything she's saying is something they should have been doing for the last 3.5 years, but all they want to do is try to get elected. Bernie Sanders even said that. Said, listen, she says she's for fracking, she's for this, she's for closing the borders, she's for pumping more oil, but just let her get elected. Then she will show you what she's really about. And he's exactly right. All they do is they run to get elected, and then they just try to change our country into socialism and communism. They try to destroy the American dream, run out our religions in the country, and give our country away to other people.
Senator, let's talk about the border. Kamala Harris supposedly has been in charge of the border czar, if you will. But it doesn't look like that her leadership and stewardship of the border has gone very well. 2 million gotaways, 10 to 20 million people that have come into the country, 300,000 kids. We have no idea where they are. Should this be more front and center in the election than it is even now?
Oh, it should be the number one topic as we're speaking, especially 40 days before the biggest election in all of our lifetime. The border is a disaster. I've been down there many times. They have they say 10 million, but the better projectors are 15 to 20 million people have come here some looking for a better life, but we've let a lot of people in here, Governor, that are not coming here for a better life. They're coming here to tear this country down. The problem is we have a Democratic Party and a lot of people in this country that believe that there should be no borders anywhere. They're globalists. Now, they started this many years ago in Europe, and all you have to do now is look at London, look at Paris, look at Berlin. They have lost Europe. Europe is gone because of migration, letting people in that don't want to assimilate, that don't want to go by the laws. They're changing them daily. They're running for office and they're getting elected. That's going to happen here. The UN right now is open for business in New York. They need to close that thing down because they're nothing but globalists that want us to change here in the United States. They don't need to bring here what we don't want. But again, I don't think the American people really understand what's going on at the border. I came from Bogota, Colombia about 2 weeks ago, and almost half of that airplane, Governor, was people from Venezuela and other parts of South America that were being brought in, paid for by the American taxpayers. You can tell, look at them, they've got all kind of identification on them, and they're flying into states all over our country. They say, well, our border's now become more closed in the last few months. No, it hadn't. Our border's still open. They're just flying them in now with more expense because of the taxpayers having to pay for these flights. It is a disaster. It's going to take us forever to get out of it. We cannot afford another month of this after this election. It's disastrous to the American people, our legacy, and for the taxpayers that pay all the taxes to run this country.
I think it's just unbelievable to me that as taxpayers, we're paying to bring people in illegally. It's like we're paying to break a law. Senator, you and I break a law, and we're broken by the law. It's just absurd.